And I guess we can let people in. Welcome in, everyone, to the PCEF committee meeting for June 10th, 2026 from 6 p.m. until about 7:15 this evening. Next slide, please. So, virtual meeting participation checklist here. Community meetings are open to the public and they will be recorded. Public comment will be about 6:05 this evening. Please use the chat box it's open for introductions and for noting public comment interest. All other times, host only chats between the PCEF staff. Please raise your hand using the electronic hand raise, or sometimes I can see you if you just raise your hand in your on your screen. The video should be on for the committee and for presenters. The microphone will be muted for the public. And as I said, this is a recorded meeting and capturing this meeting is being captioned. You can go to settings and show subtitles to be able to have a captioned meeting. Next slide, please. So our agenda this evening are welcome and introductions, public comment, approval of the April and May meeting minutes. So that's an action item. Appointment to the evaluation subcommittee for the CIP annual review. That will be an action item also. Then we'll have a discussion on the budget process and the MODA Center and program updates. And then at the end, we will have a long discussion about the climate investment plan framework and teeing up all of those. So action-packed agenda this evening. Next slide, please. Introductions. So I would love for our co-chair, Tracy, to start us off. And I just let in D'Angelo, and Anna just came in. So here you go, Tracy, start us off.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Moses. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tracy Scott, and I am the co-chair of the PCEF committee. Just a pleasure to be with all of you this evening. I would like to send it over to my co-chair, D'Angelo.
I apologize. I'm just getting off work, so I'm still getting a little acclimated. But D'Angelo Moaning, co-chair of the PCEF committee alongside Tracy Scott. Happy to see y'all here. Happy to be here. I'm looking forward to a very conducive conversation. So I don't know who to pass it to. So if somebody just wants to pick it up from where I'm at, I would certainly appreciate it.
Good evening. I'm Andre Lightsey Walker, PCEF member, and I'm going to pass it over to Meg.
Hi, you all. Megan Horst, PCEF committee member, and I am on video, but something's happening with my video, so I'm going to try to make it look like not a black hole and join when I can. And let's see, gonna cycle through. Robin.
Good evening, everybody. Robin Wang, PCEF committee member, calling in from Northeast Portland, and happy to be here. Who else?
Anna.
Anna.
Thanks, Robin. Good evening, everybody. Anna Allen, committee member. Happy to be here this evening. And I don't think we have, are there other committee members on, Dr. Moses?
No.
I don't think so. No.
Pass it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. James, welcome in.
Hi, James Valdez, he, him, on PCEF staff. Good to be with y'all.
Sam.
Good evening, everyone. Sam Brasso, he, him, program manager of PCEF team.
Beautiful.
Wendy. And yeah.
Hi, everyone. Wendy Serrano, she, her, ella. I lead community engagement and equity at PCEF. And there's Wendy Clues.
Yes, Wendy Clues, yes. And I am Christine Moses, she, her pronouns, and I am your facilitator. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming in, being here, and we're going to have a great conversation. Tracy, yes.
Dr. Moses, I was remiss in being able to share that I am calling in from the East Coast this evening, and I will be signing off at 7 o'clock Portland time. So just giving all of our members and guests a heads up that I will be signing off slightly prematurely from our close of meeting. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. Centering. So I'm inviting you all to close your eyes or to gaze softly down. You can also gaze out the window if you like. But I'm going to ask us to center ourselves. So feel your feet firmly planted on the ground. There is support right there. And feel your legs supported by your chair. You can also feel the chair on your low back. I invite you now to take 3 breaths. For a count of 4, breathe in, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. This is box breath, and it is a way for us to tap into our parasympathetic system, our getting out of fight or flight, and being able to be centered. So follow me on the first one, and then the second and third are on your own. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And do 2 more of these breaths on your own. And I invite you, when you're finished, to gently open your eyes, take a big stretch up. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Yes, we would like to go to public comment now. Please indicate your interest in providing public comment by raising your hand or indicate your interest through the Zoom chat function. For those joining the meeting by phone, please enter *9 on your phone to indicate your interest in providing public comment. I know that we have one person, Mary Emerson, who has signed up, and I see your hand up, Mary. Come on in. You can unmute, and you have 3 minutes. Welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Emerson, and I live in Portland, District 3. Transportation is the top contributor to climate change in the U.S., and I'd love to see Portland lead the charge towards a comprehensive zero-emissions transit system. It's not enough to replace private cars with electric vehicles, as there's a social and environmental cost to manufacturing batteries that should be amortized over larger populations. Moreover, transit equity means serving everyone, including those who cannot drive their own car for whatever reason. And Portland roads are literally crumbling under the weight and sheer volume of single-person vehicles on the road today. We must move to a transportation model prioritizing public and active transit and reduce car dependency to protect ecosystems and to ensure transit equity. We need a transit system with good coverage that runs frequently and provides reliable service and is accessible to everyone regardless of income. Unfortunately, due to budget pressures, TriMet's currently going the opposite direction, cutting frequency of service, cutting routes, and raising prices. TriMet may not be perfect, but it is already in place and can provide a solid base upon which to build a better, more comprehensive transit system that serves and is affordable by everyone, thus reducing carbon dependency. Is there a way for PCEF and the city to work with TriMet to move in the right direction? I know that PCEF funding is already tied up for the next few years, but rumors abound about excess funds. People claim PCEF can be used for completely unaligned goals, such as hiring more sworn police officers or making big bucks renovations to MODA to increase the value of the billionaire-owned trailblazers. If there's money at play, please consider investing in public transit, which is fully aligned with the goals of PCEF. If not, how can we start working on a plan now that will meaningfully move the needle on our transportation system's climate footprint and deliver an equitable, just, and climate-friendly future for Portland? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Really appreciate it. Tracy or D'Angelo, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I'll certainly share. Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing those very considered comments on how PCEF can support public transportation in the city of Portland. I certainly would like to turn, the mic over to give co-chair D'Angelo Moaning an opportunity to share, and certainly anyone else on the PCEF committee to share comments in recognition of your feedback to our committee. And D'Angelo?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Mary, for your comments. There are a lot of ways that people are considering how PCEF can be used. Obviously, as stewards of the fund, we are always doing our best to make sure that whatever allocation of PCEF funds is used the best way to serve the city. There's a lot of things that we're facing. I work in an industry where my focus is transportation, so I see a lot of the issues that are happening because of these budget shortfalls. So I hear you, and I see you, and we, like I said, all we can do is we can just continue to be good stewards of the fund. And if there's ever any alignment, that's something that we'll certainly address when possible.
Thank you so much. All right, I see Ranfi's hand up. Welcome in, Ranfi's. You have 3 minutes to give your public comment.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. For the record, my name is Ranfis Ginatino Villatoro. You see him pronouns, and I'm representing myself on behalf of the Blue Green Alliance and also a member of the Friends of PCEF Coalition. Just want to sort of just share my appreciation for you all as a committee. I know we and other members of the coalition have been tracking the budget process. I know there have been quite a few curveballs thrown at you, so just want to share deep appreciation to you all as a committee, as well as staff. I'm sure of the plethora of questions around the budget and the budget process as those have come up. Two, just want to continue to affirm just the importance of this fund, as well as the PCEF interest, and just the importance for City Council and the mayor to continue to engage with you all as committee members. We've shared and expressed some of our feedback and comments to other council members, but just wanted to extend and continue to affirm just how important the fund in general is, including the interest and just the importance of being involved. Making sure council and the mayor's office is involving you all in each step of the process as it relates to PCEF. Second, third, I think what's really becoming more and more important, just the importance and the ability for this committee and this staff to continue to have oversight and accountability for funds as they're expending. I think as a member of the public, it becomes really important to be able to track what are the changes happening within the CIP, including the interest. And I think it's important for a program like PCEF that was voter approved to be able to track those changes and what those benefits are, what those trade-offs are as well. So I just want to continue to affirm that. And as you all roll with the hits, if you will, just continue to find opportunities to strengthen this program. So with that said, I would love to apply for money for house retrofits. There's a great home in Southeast Portland. I'm just kidding. That's not the point of my testimony. But again, cheering you all on. continue to do great work and take the long view also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranfis. Any comments? D'Angelo, yes.
Yeah, I'll certainly chime in. I do want to say, Rampus, I appreciate you always being an advocate for PCEF. I appreciate your leadership as you were co-chair of the committee, and I appreciate you always showing up to, show your voice, raise your voice, and really speak about these issues that we're seeing in the city. I also share some of your concerns, and I feel like that's something that I think that as a committee that we will actively be discussing. So, is there anything that you wanted to say as well, Tracy?
I do. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ramphis. We always appreciate your thought leadership and your support of the work that the PCEF, the current PCEF members are doing to protect the best interest of what the voters actually voted for the mission of PCEF. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure to see you and to hear your, again, very, very measured thoughts. So thank you. And I certainly open the floor to any of the other members who may want to chime in.
Well, with our action packed, okay, Meg, go right ahead. But
No, I was going to say, I think my comments will best go for the budget process discussion, because that's mainly what Renfis's comments were about. And I see that later in the agenda.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and move forward. Approval of the meeting minutes from April 29th and May 13th. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 29th and May 13th?
I so move.
May I have a second?
A second.
May I have discussion? Are there any questions, comments, clarifications? Seeing none, may I have all in favor? Please raise your hand or say yes. I see everyone. Very good. The motion has passed. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Appoint evaluation subcommittee for CIP annual review. All right, James, you are up.
All right, yeah. Thank you all. And as you might have remembered over past committee meetings, we are starting the CIP annual update process, and we provided a little bit of an overview of what that process will look like. So I won't go through that all again, but we really do want to kick that off starting this month with the review of the city climate projects. And so the next step is to formally appoint among you all a subcommittee to help us as staff and to really to guide that review process, and ultimately for the subcommittee to come up with a recommendation that would come to the full committee if there's any changes or amendments that you as a full committee want to make to the CIP, and for the subcommittee to have an opportunity to evaluate, to ask questions, and to guide that work. And so the two committee members who've, I guess, self-nominated themselves and expressed some interest are Andre and Meg. And we do need a minimum two. We could also have the opportunity when more PCEF committee members come on once they're appointed by City Council to add somebody to that subcommittee if there's interest. But I guess the motion that I would suggest for you all is to appoint Andre and Meg to a annual CIP update subcommittee.
Beautiful. May I have a second?
Well, I think you all have to make the motion first. I have to make a recommendation, but
right. Okay. So yes, please. May I have?
I'm sorry, Dr. Moses. I so move, please.
Second.
Okay. Second. Anna says second. Beautiful. Any conversation, discussion, questions?
Quick question for James. It's ideal to have potentially three, if I'm not mistaken. I would love to, once we have our other three members to join the committee, have the option to join. I do understand that there will be considerable onboarding of them at that time and realize that they may be overwhelmed with the process. If we have no takers at that point, I will be happy to join the subcommittee, but I do want to reserve an opportunity for new members to also be able to serve in that capacity. So I do want to have it on record that, I'm totally willing to serve in that capacity as well.
Great, thank you, Tracy. And yes, I think once we have additional committee members on board, we can revisit, and there could be an opportunity to appoint an additional, or to have you be appointed to the subcommittee for the review.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comment? All in favor? May I see your hands? Very good. So moved. Thank you so much, Andre. And Meg, thank you so much for stepping in to do this really, really important work. All right. Next slide, please. Budget process discussion. Think I'm teeing up Sam for this.
I think I might be turning the floor back to committee members. I know this was at the request of committee members in follow-up to just wanting, to share some of the reflections. I understand, Meg, around the budget process as that is played out in the past, obviously, month. Today was a major moment for the budget discussions, and then I believe it's going to continue tomorrow morning as well from the sounds of it. So I think I'm actually I'm here certainly to answer questions as I can, but I think I'm turning the floor back to committee members to have this discussion amongst themselves.
Thank you, Sam. Meg, would you like to start us off? Yes, please.
Well, sure. Hi, everybody. So there's probably a lot to say here, but I know we only have a short amount of time allotted. I will share that I did testify today in front of City Council just as a committee member, but not on behalf of the committee. And I said that when I was presenting, because we haven't had time or information to form a response, and we haven't been asked to weigh in on it, which is what I was talking about. The main gist of my testimony was that it seems to me that there are major changes happening to the CIP in this process, and by code, by our authority, major changes to the CIP should be reviewed and advised upon by us. So I at least wanted to express my frustration that we have not been brought in. And the one change I referred to was the BES to PMO funding, which I think there's been an amendment about, but it's hard for me to track all the curveballs that are happening, as one piece put it. But either way, those seem like, since we don't have any answers about them, they seem like more than just administrative changes, and any significant changes to the CIP are supposed to be reviewed as part of our annual review process. So that was the main flag I was raising. That said, I'm a little unclear with all the curveballs. I think there are other things we got an email about, and I've read the news about some change in interest. We've heard nothing about that in a formal PCEF context, but that seems like a very significant change that we should be discussing and weighing in on, I think. And I don't know if there are other changes that, so I would appreciate, Sam, I know your email today shared a link, but to 3 things. I didn't have the time myself to critically analyze them. But I guess my question to the committee is, and to staff is there another week to weigh in, and what possibility do we have for weighing in and saying a flag hey, changes should come to us? What's our power here? I guess it's my question, the big question, and then maybe I have more specific questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Meg.
I'll do my best to just at least bring folks current to sort of where we're at. So at least just factually state where things are, and acknowledge one, just this there's an impossibility of the challenge here with the budget timelines that have been just the nature of the budget timelines and the schedule of our meetings. So acknowledge that as a challenge that I know that we've had to reckon with, not only this one time. What I will state in terms of the where the budget stands today is, yes, there were several amendments proposed as of earlier. I think those amendments were just shared, if I believe correctly, later on Monday. And so those amendments were discussed by council. There are 3 amendments. 2 of them did relate to the not general fund, but leveraging the current interest that's accruing this current fiscal year. In the mayor's original proposed budget, that was looking back to the prior fiscal year that had closed last June 30th, 2025. And so there was an amendment proposed to take the current year's interest that's accruing that was discussed and deliberated on today. There wasn't a conclusion on that amendment. I believe neither of the two amendments that did not pass. And there's a third amendment proposed that did not receive discussion today, if I tracked it correctly. So I suspect those conversations will continue tomorrow. I'll leave it there in terms of some of the amendments that have been proposed. But I believe as it stands at the moment, the only amendment that did pass related to funding about 14 positions over in the Portland permitting and development for the tree permitting team. So it was to shore up some of the cuts that were originally proposed for that team, and that would be coming from Strategic Program 34, which is our tree protection and care within the Climate Investment Plan. And so that's the only amendment that had to date passed related to the mayor's proposed budget and PCEF.
And just to follow up, and I'd love other committee members to weigh in. So does that mean the PIMA one that I was referencing stalled? I think I could just use a little refresher on how the budget process works.
I think there were in the May deliberations and discussion of City Council, there were amendments to shift and address some of the mayor's proposed use of some of the originally assigned BES funding for PIMO to deliver that service. That remains in the budget, as there's none of those amendments move forward.
Okay, there's been no amendment to revise that one, or at least not one that's gained any traction.
Correct, at the moment.
Okay, so the
still
possible ones
outstanding-
affecting PCEF include that one that's
still-
just not being amended. Yeah.
There's still an outstanding amendment that may be discussed potentially tomorrow that may touch on that, but at the moment that remains.
And then the interest one has not yet been, like, might get more traction tomorrow, TBD.
I think if for those following the discussion today, it didn't move forward today. There were two different votes on using the current interest that did not move forward, but there was also discussion around coming together, potentially those two different amendments working out a compromise.
Okay, so it sounds like one to track. And then the third one you discussed, the permitting positions. I don't know that I have a good sense of that move and the implications of it. And is it fair to characterize that as a purely administrative move?
No, I wouldn't care. I mean, I think this is there's a history to those positions where in the prior administration, we had begun through a prior budget action, we had begun funding some of the permitting staff position, tree permitting staff positions over in the urban forestry division that was at Portland Parks and Recreation. Last budget year, there was an amendment to move some of those staff positions over to permitting and development. And then subsequently, I guess the challenge has been when that move happened, all of the funding that was associated with those positions, that wasn't all exclusively PCEF, did not move over. So they were ultimately, as they moved in and as it became a program within the permitting and development team, there wasn't enough funding to carry that full staff, which is about 26, 27 staff. And so this year, given that there wasn't enough funding to carry them forward, that's where that mayor's proposed budget originally had cuts in that team at permitting and development. And the solution that the council did adopt in an amendment was to move additional funding over from urban forestry to shore that up. I would acknowledge that did, in effect, take from that program that wasn't originally planned for. And at the same end, I think, we will be doing our analysis to understand sort of where the balance of things stand. And so I know that there was some questions on underspending, and so that's the analysis we'll be getting into this year to fully understand.
Yeah, in the annual, sounds like a good one to flag for the annual review committee. Yeah, and I guess fellow committee members, I think the reason I keep asking these questions is because one of our only authorities as a committee is to advise on the CIP. So when changes are happening to it in the budget process, that undermines like our actual role and authority. So that's why I'm asking a lot of questions. I don't know, given the timeline and that people didn't come to us, what we can do next. And maybe D'Angelo has a great idea.
Go ahead, D'Angelo.
No, I appreciate you shoring up this conversation because I don't have any answers. I want to just preface that I don't have any answers, and hopefully as we discuss this we'll have answers. But I just want to express some really deep concerns and quite frankly some slight frustrations about the recent utilization of PCEF funds that continue to leave us without transparency or adherence to a real due process. We don't have any answers to any of the questions or the concerns that are raised. And I certainly appreciate the space and the opportunity for committee members to like lean in and openly have this discussion because it's really important that we talk about what these things mean for the city and what they mean for the committee as we think about long-term sustainability across the board. To your point, Meg, I'm really troubled by the budget's mention of reallocating funds to PMO. Just there's not any real significant level of detail that says how the funds will be used. And because of how sparse that description is, we don't really know how to determine if the allocation even meets PCEF's purpose and criteria. We don't know where they're going. We don't know what, at least I don't, maybe others do, but I have not seen anything that has really given me the latitude to say, oh, I understand this, and this is actually in alignment with what PCEF was made for. That's something that I would love to have, folks that are at PMO, like leadership from PMO, like I would love to have them come to the committee and, provide us with some information, some detailed descriptions of what that allocation looks like, how those funds will be used. And I also have concerns about this recent usage of PCEF interest. I believe this is the third year, I think, that we've seen the interest fund used for other non-fund related purposes. And this would be the first time that the fund is used before the interest is even really accumulated, which is another precedent that I think is very, very dangerous. We continue to be proposed and used in a variety of different ways that oftentimes feel like they're outside of the mission and the vision of the original ballot measure. And this particular precedent to utilize PCEF funds before they've accrued to fill immediate shortfalls puts the city and PCEF as a whole unilaterally in jeopardy. I don't want to, and I'm trying to find my words, so I apologize if I'm like pausing, but I understand that we have to have a functioning city to have a functioning PCEF program, right? If our city, the employees, and the systems are in dire straits, then so are we, right? But the only way I can see this is that, to use an idiom, you can't keep robbing Peter to pay Paul, because at some point, Peter's not going to have any more money to take. And so when you take the interest before it's accumulated fully, means that we have less interest to use for the future years of the CIP, at which point the CIP will actively be in use and that interest will be unavailable. So then I think about how do you as Peter pay Paul once you get to that? How do you pay Paul once you get to that point, right? There's no money to take. So then what's the real issue here? And there's a precedent that's been set where these funds keep being used in ways that are, like I said, they're vaguely if at all related to the actual mission of PCEF, which is not the only fund in the city that accumulates interest. So I'm troubled by why PCEF continues to be the one that continues to be utilized to meet these shortfalls, right? And beyond that, there are.
D'Angelo, I'm gonna ask you to wrap up here.
I'm almost done. I'm almost done, I promise. I'm sorry. I just have a lot of, I'm almost done. I think there's deeper issues to recognize though, is that, there's a genuine structural deficit in the city when it comes to bridging city operations that can't be done in this way, where you keep taking from the PCEF interest fund. And so it puts us at a long-term risk for the CIP and the program at large. And so we recognize this process doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And so I would love to see how we could lean in with the city, with council, especially with community leaders and community members, that allows us to have real good and faithful stewardship of the fund moving forward. So sorry, I know that was a lot, but I've been kind of like mulling over this. So thank you for giving me the time to really express that.
Thank you so much, D'Angelo. Anna, you're going to be our last person on this topic. You're going to round us out, so go right ahead.
Thanks, Dr. Moses. And really, I think it's just kind of reiterating some of the points that our co-chair D'Angelo just made too, is I like what I heard, D'Angelo, what I heard you saying, or what resonated with me is kind of this idea of like the risk is not just that PCEF dollars replace existing city spending. The risk is that frontline communities are told they're receiving a new climate and equity investment when in reality PCEF is potentially paying for services or obligations that the city should have been providing or can provide all along. And so that's something that I'm sitting with a little bit, that I'm trying to find that balance, because I too also believe in like, yeah, we should also be funding things that fit well within this fund within the city, but how do we balance that with the idea that really what were the people voting for? And so the question that just comes up for me is like, how does PCEF distinguish between investments that expand opportunity, capacity, and outcomes for frontline communities versus investments that simply kind of backfill existing government responsibilities? So that's a hard one for me. And I'm hoping that the budgeting process is landing in a place where they're pulling from the right buckets for the right things and not just relying on PCEF to backfill.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you, everyone, for your insights and your wisdom. So appreciate this. So I'm going to move us on, and it's going to kind of segue into the MODA Center discussion for July 23rd committee meeting. And so, Tracy, I wanted to tee you up if you want to take us in this topic, take us in this question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Moses, and to my fellow PCEF committee members. You know, we have a very brief amount of time here, and we wanted to be able to get your input on what you actually would like to see in the presentation. I believe, Sam, please correct me if I'm wrong, in July 23rd, so next month, where we will see the presentation or proposal from RIP City Management on what they're proposing to have in the MODA Center proposal, to the PCEF committee. And I want to have an opportunity to really, pulse the team to be able to provide your feedback on what you think we should, as a committee, provide as inputs so that the RIP City Management has considered information from the committee on what they should wrap into this proposal. Again, our mission, obviously we are all aware, but we have visitors on the call. The PCEF surcharge was put in place to ensure, number one, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, climate action, and clean energy projects, economic opportunities for historically underserved communities, workforce training and job creation, community-led solutions, benefits for low-income communities, and again, communities we have not served well in the past in the city of Portland, and then of course, climate resilience. So, what I'm asking from the committee is to provide, an answer to, can a MODA Center investment deliver measurable climate benefits while also creating meaningful workforce economic development opportunities for, again, populations that we have not served well in the past, in other populations who the mandate was intended to benefit? And if so, certainly from my perspective, I'm thinking we should have, something like specific apprenticeship targets, workforce training commitments, underserved populations that have business participation goals, women-owned business participation goals. I'm being very careful because I want to say minority, but I realize that there's language that we want to be really sensitive to, but I think we understand the intent of what Portland voters voted on. Career pathways for family wage jobs, long-term economic opportunity beyond just the construction and the build-out of the clean energy solutions within MODA, and then measurable accountability and reporting. These are my thinking on it. I want to hear from other community members, and Dr. Moses, I know I've taken a considerable amount of time, but I want to get feedback from all of the members so that we have it on record of what a very sound proposal would look like from all of the PCEF committee members.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Robin, I'm gonna bring you up to bat first. I hope you don't mind. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, I got a couple thoughts. One is I would be, to be honest, quite disappointed if we just got a presentation from Rip City or whoever. If this is truly a community-led, community input presentation, I would like to hear from members of the community who they've spoken to, who they've planned with, who they've collaborated with, and hear for them how this proposal is going to benefit them. It's one thing for a developer, it's one thing for Rip City to share their vision, but I want to see buy-in from the community. I want to see commitment, and I think just presenting a LEED type building or whatever renovations. I think MODA is already a LEED building, so it's not really anything that's better. For me, it's the community benefits. That's the key, I think, to making this a true PCEF project. I don't want community to be kind of an afterthought or oh, by the way, we have talked to these 5 different, 10 different, 20 different, organizations. I'd really want to hear from community why this would benefit them. To me, that would demonstrate, buy-in and commitment. The other thing that I want to hear from, and again, I don't think this is from Rip City, this is from the city. I want a very clear understanding of where the money is coming from. PCEF is very fortunate to have a big pot of money available, but the money doesn't grow from thin air. You can't pull it from thin air. And we have a budget, the CIP has a budget, and the money needs to come from somewhere. So, where is this money coming from? That is very important for me to hear. So I'll keep it brief. That's my 2 kind of big things, and would love to hear what others have to say.
Thank you so much, Robin. Andre, you're up. And then Anna, you'll go after Andre.
Great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I want to be conscious of time, so I just have a few. I sent an email to PCEF members. I think I'll just highlight those bullets here. So I want to understand how the renovation project directly advances our climate and equity goals. I want to better understand who is going to benefit demographically and who is actually attending the MODA Center. I would love to get a demographic analysis of, who is at the MODA Center most frequently and whether or not that demographic population is reflective of Portland as a whole, and more specifically PCEF's priority communities. I would love if they could bring forward examples of similarly scaled investment in private entities that provided on-the-ground benefits for priority populations similar to PCEFs. I want to better understand why this funding request is targeted at PCEF and why there appears to be a limited offering of funds from Rip City Management and the organizations involved with the MODA Center. And I want to get clarity on sort of a cost-benefit analysis of what it looks like, where if we give this money away to Rip City, what does that take away from other opportunities that we could be using this money for? So there's just a couple of high-level thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Anna, and then Meg.
Thank you, Dr. Moses, and other committee members too, because I think I'm feeling some of the same concern. I think for me, I'm like seeing a significant, staff reduction and rifts within the Blazers team, and so I'm just curious how that aligns or impacts this effort moving forward. And so that's just something that's sitting with me, is there seems to be a shift in values. And so I want to make sure that there's alignment there, because what today's conversation is different, I think, given new ownership, a reduction in staff, particularly staff who were leading a lot of the efforts around procuring funds at the state level, and now, in the local level as well. How does that staffing reduction potentially impact their ability to move forward with, if, as a leader in, on the front line of procuring funds for this renovation? And then also just ensuring, like, how does that line up, those values line up with community benefit, just as much as my committee members have just shared too. So I won't go much further into that, but those are my high level concerns.
Thank you so much, Anna. Meg, and then D'Angelo.
Hi, thanks for teeing this up, Tracy. And like Andre and Robin, I also did send an email that's got a lot of it all. I think a generative group discussion is great. So I appreciate prepping. And I agree with a lot of the things said, so I won't repeat them. I will repeat myself, which is I'm just frustrated this is happening outside of the annual CIP process, which I really would love us to figure out a way to make be the annual process in their projects, just because they're coming from somebody important. Don't just like show up at our meetings. But with that frustration set aside for the moment, I'll say, yeah, I think what's most important to me is that is how it's set up. I don't want it to be a presentation actually from the architect. I think that could be like 5 minutes of the evening, but that would not be to me what like a deliberative discussion should look like. I maybe want some high level viewpoints, maybe from the architect, but I want to hear from city leaders. We own the building, the city bought it and we own it. So I want to hear from city leaders why they think PCEF's a great use of this fund. I want to hear from community, like Robin said. The Blazers are not the only users of that building, so I'm curious about other users of the building. And like, I think there is a potential for PCEF funds to do something really extraordinary and cool with this building. But like Robin said, we're already LEED certified. Like, it can't just be saving money for the Blazers on when they're running the AC and heat. It's got to be like, I want to see, what about community, but like, what about lower utility bills for people in the neighborhood? What about, making it a climate resilience hub during their next big heat and smoke wave? Like, I don't know what the right solution is, but I think it's got to be bigger than just making it a pretty green building, because it already is a good green building. So what makes this a PCEF project? Robin had suggested this could, if we have the potential for an in-person meeting. I do think somehow or another hearing a lot from community. I don't know if it can happen in the July meeting, but like, I do want to see members of key partner organizations there, but I mean the community at large. I don't know if there'll be space and time, but I would love to hear and have like public testimony before or after or part of all this. So maybe that's a big in-person meeting, or maybe it's 2 meetings. I'm not sure, but to me that would be important in the process. And then I guess ultimately I want to be clear on like what our role is. Are we voting or deciding something? And I would definitely want to not have to do that in one meeting.
Thank you so much, Meg. Wonderful points. D'Angelo, you're going to wrap us up on this section of the meeting.
Yeah, no problem. To make up for earlier, I will be brief and brilliant. So I mean, I don't have much more to add to what my committee member said. I think the benefit of going last is that everybody says all the good things, right? But what I want to voice is, one, I'm not necessarily the happiest about how this came about. I think that this is something that, again, should have gone through a different kind of process. And so I worry about the precedent that this sets moving forward for other major developments come through PCEF without a real due process. So I would invite folks to lean in and really determine what a process looks like for any of these kinds of initiatives moving forward. But we're here. Part of my job that I do, just outside of PCEF is like I work in construction. I work alongside contractors, and I work on major infrastructure projects and billion-dollar projects. So in particular, when I think about the Moda Center, I think about community benefits. I think about, and I would invite folks to look into the Tennessee Titans and how they've done their program. They have worked directly with community members, community leaders, small businesses, disadvantaged businesses, to ensure that there is an actual workforce benefits program that has impacted up nearly 20% of the most disadvantaged people in that city, right? They've put out, I think, 3.5 million hours for people to get work for folks that didn't have opportunities before. There's a whole training program, right? That was really community activated. It was really community led. And they really prioritized how to use this building in a way that it would benefit communities as a whole, right? 110 plus million dollars were given to small contractors that were able to grow their ability to do work. So I'd like to see how this project will do that same way, in a way that is a very PCEF climate leading way. Finally, I'd like to see more conversation with community members involved. I think it's very important that we get community perspectives to ensure that we're rounding it out. And then this is actually the last comment. The airport does this thing called an ACDB. It's Airport Certified Disadvantaged Business Enterprises, right? That is specifically for disadvantaged businesses to have take up shop in the airport. I would love to see MODA activated community space, something similar to where community members can actually leverage a space that was carved out for them to run their businesses, to have their shops, to promote things. I would love to see something like that, where there's an actual regular community activation, not just for particular crises of heat and cold, not just for games, but an actual utilization that is ongoing, that is always readily available. So I'll stop there.
Beautiful, D'Angelo. Thank you so much. Tracy, you get to have the
Yeah.
final word.
Well, look, I appreciate the comments from the committee members. These are all wonderful ideas that can help seed and provide guidance to the RIP City management. I believe, Sam, you will be collecting all of this information, not that it's not a public meeting, for them to be able to share with them directly. So I certainly appreciate all the feedback that the committee members have provided. And I really look forward to that presentation. And Megan, your point is well taken. In whatever, really format, I prefer that it is one that we could have and host community members to actually be present and not just have the architectural, kind of conversation, but something that is really, our focus is on, the hat I wear here is focused on community benefits. The hat I wear in my other life is focused on clean energy upgrades. And of course, that is certainly part of, climate change that we're focused on here too. But we trust that that will already be built in. That'll be foundational baseline of what happens at Moda Center because of where it is now. So thank you so much to all the committee members and Dr. Moses for giving us space to discuss that today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Next slide, please.
Okay, so given where we are with time, I'll just say here is, one, thank you, Tracy, for the suggestion. A range of program updates in written format, and for members of the public, that's also posted online, so you can see the memo to the committee with written program updates. So what I'll do is I'm largely going to skip it and just at a high level say there's a lot of changes in the program updates. You can see we announced and share just a lot of additional staff positions, things that have changed. Some of it took place certainly earlier in last month, but this is our moment of opportunity to share that with you all. So take a look there. I will encourage folks to come back and ask any questions if you've got questions about any of those program updates. But one notable thing I will share is we did just close out our community grants solicitation for this year in end of May, and we're working through our initial eligibility review, and that's going well. And what we're starting to see is we're starting to level out at where we're at. Well, we received about a total of 223 applications requesting, and the breakdown was about 153 implementation grants, 70 planning grants, requesting 271 million in total funding. And that's almost spot on with what we received last year. So we're starting to see a leveling out of the kind of interest, and it's giving us a basis for diving in and really going to be a productive and fruitful conversation as we start thinking about the next climate investment plan and what is that balance point for how we see community grants and the demand there. With that, you've got plenty of other content there. What I'll do now is I'd love to turn it over to our next agenda item, which I will just name, if that's okay, Dr. Moses and our co-chairs. We're going to be short on time. I think what we'd like to do here, this was intended to be a broader discussion that Wendy Serrano on our team was going to lead you all through. What we'd like to do is preview just some of the framework and thinking that we were bringing back around a climate investment plan. This is really important for us because, as you all see, we've got our committee members here with you all this evening. Come our July meeting, fingers crossed, we should have the rest of the committee appointed by then. They will. That's part of the program updates that will go before the committee of the whole on June 17th. That's next week, and then they'll They'll hopefully be appointed by the full committee on July 22nd. Again, we'll see where council lands there. But and so what we'll do then is there'll be a significant onboarding process, and we'll be coming back to this conversation in some format where we can regroup, reorient both folks like Andre, Anna, our existing committee members, others, even I think Tracy, D'Angelo, you both, that didn't go through this in our inaugural climate investment plan process. So we've got to rethink about how we're going to do that in a way, and I think it's going to be beneficial to reground everyone, including the new members in this. But tonight's really just a preview, given where we are on the time, so that you all can start thinking about that. And if we have at least a moment or two for questions, you'll have that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Wendy to give you all a preview of some of the thinking that went into the original climate investment plan and some of the things you'll want to be thinking about for our next update process. Okay.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome in, Wendy.
Thank you all. If we could go to the next slide, that would be great, and we'll get right into it. Yeah, I think Sam helped us with some of the framing. We really want to gather your feedback and consider what needs to change for future refinement. We aren't trying to workshop this here. That wasn't the intention. We recognize that this may be a good topic for a retreat. I know that there's some new members here now that just joined recently, and we have 3 more members joining. So it seems like we're in a ripe position to just come together and really think through, like, okay, what is the apparatus that we use to make decisions? And this is just helping us prime that conversation, and hopefully it can facilitate some like thinking offline so that when we do re-engage, we have a starting place. And really thinking through grounding ourselves on what is the existing framework and trying to gather as much as we can today or through some follow-up email, recognizing what you all think are good parts of the framework today, what you consider valuable from your perspective as a piece of committee member, or what you recognize as potential gaps or something we may be considering in future exploration. I think also what we've been talking about for the past hour, there's been an evolution with PCEF, right? And I think we've been growing and at a fast rate. And so I think just like really being mindful of like, what are the tools that we use to make decisions, and are they the right tools? Are they still in sync? And we recognize that the framework that I'm about to show you was created in 2023 as the climate investment plan was really put together. And that might have been by some members that may still be here today, but there's a lot of newer members. And it was applied to at least the first original 16 strategic programs. And there's variations in how that framework has been used. And that's a conversation that I think would also be helpful as we dive into the topic. But for now, I think it's just having you all sit with the existing framework and getting your gut reactions with the time that we have right now. So if we can go to the next slide. Great. So something I don't usually do, I'm going to read one by one because this is the meat of the content. And I promise I only have one more slide. So this is where we're going to spend our time. And I know it's late. So our existing climate and equity framework has these elements. One of them is asking this question: what are the benefits to frontline communities? Will the program create clear, significant, and measurable benefit to frontline communities? Community leadership. Are there meaningful opportunities for community members to participate in decision-making and or provide leadership in program implementation? Does the program invest in building capacity within communities most impacted? Implementation feasibility. Can the program be realistically implemented at scale with existing city staff, partners, or contractors over 5 years? Climate impact. GHG reduction. Will the program result in meaningful and measurable GHG reduction, sequestration, and accountability? Do accountability mechanisms exist to ensure that communities of color, low-income populations, people with disabilities, and other vulnerable communities benefit from the strategic program? Is this program additional to an existing or planned efforts? Okay, so I'm going to at least sit with this, and then I would love to do a quick popcorn and just try to gather people's reactions. Like, I want to know what stood out to you, what takes your attention, and why. And I know you gotta go, Tracy. Thank you for joining us. But I don't mean to pick on anyone, but I'm gonna start with Meg, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my reaction is I think these are still great questions. Like I know there have been our foundational start, but I I still want them to be our North Star. So I wonder though, we've had them and I think sometimes, yeah, sometimes we maybe don't have a great way of assessing it when we get the information, but I'm not sure it's because the questions, like I'm not sure that it's the questions that aren't giving us enough information. But anyway, I guess my takeaway is I think there's still the North Star for me.
That's great. Thank you. Maybe we go to Robin next.
Yeah, I think this is good starting point. There's a whole bunch of new committee members, and it's 5 years later. So I would be open to other ideas. Not to say that these are bad or good. I think they're, like I said, a good starting point. I'm lots have happened in the last 5 years. Maybe there's other things that are more important, and would love to have it open to that idea. Um, I do have a question, and it's probably most related to implementation feasibility. And I don't need an answer now, but the question is, how beholden or constrained are we to the existing CIP, the existing budgets, plans, recognizing that most of the money is going to city bureaus. Is there an expectation that we maintain that funding, or do we really start from a blank, fresh canvas, blank slate, excuse me. Don't need an answer now, but that's something that is going to be my question in my mind as we
Well, Jed,
start this process.
it's like I queued you up with my next question. So you're doing great, Robin. We'll pass it over to D'Angelo now.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it brief. I agree with Meg. I think that these are still very much great North Stars. I agree with both Meg and Robin both, but I think this is still very much defines what our North Star should be. I might be going a little left, but I think about with these being our North Star, when I think about accountability, the things that we do to ensure that we don't defer from this North Star. So what does accountability look like in terms of are we actually, whatever we're funding, is it actually going to stay within the mission, vision, and values of the original ballot measure? Are we compromising by including other things that may not be nearly as close or as tied to this? I really want to drill down on the accountability piece and the communications necessary to maintain that accountability before, during, and after the CIP amendment process and for future CIP amendment processes. So stop there.
Thank you. And we'll go next, Anna, then Andre.
Thanks for the rundown. And I know I'll try to be brief too. I still see this as the North Star, also one of the relatively new members, but something that I'm thinking about reading through this is just like, how are these criteria weighted when, when staff in the committee are faced with competing priorities, like for example, if a project demonstrates strong community leadership, but relatively modest climate impacts, or vice versa, strong climate impacts, but it's like in-house and there's not really a huge community leadership or benefit to it. Like how is that trade-off evaluated or weighted? And so that's just something that is sitting with me, but still agree with these being our North Star.
All right, I'm next. Thanks for putting these forward. I've got to spend a little bit of time with them as part of a evaluation. I don't know exactly what the SP is. James, you might have to remind me. But I've got to look at these, and what I can share is something that has come up is specifically language around building capacity. I would really love for us to have a clearer definition of what building capacity means. It means a lot of different things to different peoples, and so I think there could be an opportunity to tap into that language a little bit. And then, as a new member, I really like these as North Stars. Folks have said. I'm curious if climate impact could be expanded beyond GHG reductions. Something that's on my mind right now is the extreme heat that we continuously face. And, I think we're going to have a few hot days coming up even this week. And so just thinking about sort of resilience in addition to GHG reduction. Just a few thoughts to get us started. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrea. And then we'll go to Meg.
Yeah, actually, Andre just hit on the point that I realized I wish I had made earlier, but I'll just elaborate it briefly. Partly wearing my hat as the regenerative ag green infrastructure rep on the committee, particularly regenerative ag often is not an area of the funding that does well when we prioritize climate impact, but it does great when we talk about resilience and multiple benefits to frontline communities. And so that's just kind of one example, but I completely agree with Andre that I think I would argue that we should broaden that some projects might not have a great GHG impact in the first year. And tree planting also takes like a very long time to have measurable sequestration. So basically the whole Raggy project area doesn't do that well just in the like short-term GHG emissions compared to clean energy. But I think the city at large benefits greatly from those investments, and they're definitely climate resilience investments. So I would like us to expand that and have a way. And on the multiple benefits, I think that's kind of captured in the front, in the top one. But if we're still also measuring climate impact only, it kind of can contradict each other if we're not also considering resilience. Just thinking of cooling Portland too, that project wouldn't have done well on a climate impact project, but I think we think it's a great piece of project. I think.
And I think that's exactly, I mean, I recognize we only have 7 minutes left, but I think why we're having this conversation is because I think to your point, these may still feel really relevant. And I think something we're trying to decipher a little bit more on the staff side is that we have these, and we also have the guiding principles that the committee created as well. And I heard many of you say North Star, and I think I want us to be able to reflect as to like how are we using the framework, how are we using the guiding principles, and how are they reflecting our values and our decision making, whether it be in the investments or in how we're measuring impact. And that's another area where I hope to plant a couple of seeds for you all as we get more follow-up. But also, as I said, we're going to have a deeper conversation, ideally in person. I would love to have a little workshop, or not a little, but a workshop where we're really digging into those guiding principles and this equity and climate framework. Because to the point of benefits to frontline communities, the clear question is, will the program create clear, significant, and measurable benefits to frontline communities? But are there specific types of benefits for you all that are important? Because I think that can look very different to different folks. And I think aspirationally, staff has tried to adhere to specific benefits, such as like, reducing or increasing affordability for folks. And that would be, a savings in your utility bill. That's very clear. But I think really to Andre's point, like, what role does public health and like what specific benefits in the realm do the committee members really care about? And we would want to see more specificity or reflection to really help us in measuring and really thinking through how we're thinking about the investments that we're making, like what kind of information we need to include from the proposals in order for you all to see what we're actually getting out of that investment. Like there's a little bit of priming that I think that needs to take place to satisfy the criteria that we want to put forth. And so that's kind of the area that I would like to go with you all next, and really thinking through, are these the right ones? If so, yes. Do they need to be expanded? Is there ambiguity in them? And then identify where those elements are and really like work together. I think this is us as staff really trying to get your vision and how we can best use these tools together. And so that's kind of the whole why and what we hope to be doing next. And I'll pause there just to see if there's any other reflections before we wrap up, considering we only have 4 minutes. But yeah, I really wanted you all to be able to reflect on the framework. I had some slides to prime that, and there's plenty of examples of how different funds or different efforts are trying to use an equity and climate framework. And I think, sometimes climate impact is broader, right? It's really encompasses like more sustainability, more than just GHG reductions. And I think there's some conversation for committee and staff to have about the trade-offs, right? Like when it comes to weighing GHG reduction, there's quite a lot of staff it's intensive because we have to create methodology for the wide range of investments that we have. It's not just clean energy, but we operate in different sectors and you need different methodology for that. And to get accuracy requires time. And so I think it's important for us to really understand where the priorities for you are, because it's not just about how we decided to make the investment, but also it comes down to like, what are we tracking as far as how we measure impact on what those programs are doing in our community? So as I said, I'll wrap there and see if there's any final thoughts before we wrap up. I'll go Robin and then D'Angelo.
Yeah, I'll just offer a real. I work in some other climate funds, where climate justice is a big part of it, and time and time again, it's the co-benefits that are sometimes just as or sometimes more important than the climate benefits. So I think those should be a priority, and I also acknowledge that some of these non-climate benefits are extremely hard to quantify or measure. And I haven't come across anybody that's figured out how do you measure, things like public health or community resilience. And so I think we, unless there's some new idea, I think we just need to acknowledge that, that's a fact of life, and maybe somehow try to factor in narratives or other elements. I'm certainly open to other ideas, but I know just saying that is a challenge.
Thank you. D'Angelo?
Robin, you took the words right out of my mouth, particularly about community resilience. That's one thing that, as I think about some of the very extreme weather that we've had in the city, it's one thing that I've seen be more and more priority for specifically, priority populations. So I appreciate you flagging that in particular. And the last thing I'll say is that I really am appreciative of this. I believe that these things can always be expanded upon, and so it's up to us as a committee members to make sure that we are having those conversations and expressing those thoughts. But more importantly, that we have a reminder of what the North Star of the Climate Investment Plan is, and that anything that goes through the CIP is held to these standards. So I just want to appreciate you for your presentation, Wendy. Thank you for the good reminder for not just us, but those in attendance watching here, YouTube, wherever they may be.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope this is the beginning of us collaborating a little bit more on these items. And thank you for your time. You've spent a lot of hours on PCEF and we really appreciate it. Sam, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Wendy. That's great. So our work here, y'all, is to take this. Obviously, we've got to take this and figure out how we bring y'all together and go a little deeper and get some more of those, ground this in a little bit more tactile. How do we make this work in the update process? And then you all will get to think about this again as we get to spring of next year and talk about the next climate investment plan. So it's going to be different use cases and it's going to evolve, and that's okay. So I just want to thank you all for obviously the discussion and taking your time and spending the time with us this evening. Back to you, Dr. Moses.
Well, this wraps up our meeting for this evening at 7:15. I want to say thank you so much to everyone for being here today. Excellent conversation and wonderful compassion as well as wisdom. Thank you, everyone. Have